There is something that happens right before the eating starts. And it isn't hunger, it's more like a pull. A pressure that's already there before you've opened anything, before you've even decided anything. And somewhere in you, you already know this isn't about food. You knew it before you got up. You know it while it's happening. You know it after. And that knowing, that specific quality of knowing and doing it anyway, is one of the loneliest feelings there is, because it makes the question feel unanswerable. What is wrong with me? This video is not going to tell you nothing is wrong. It's going to do something more useful than that. It's going to explain exactly what is happening, the actual mechanism, the real reason, in a way that finally makes this make sense. Not the willpower explanation, the real one. Here is the question that almost never gets asked correctly. Not, why can't you stop? Not, why don't you have more discipline? Not, why do you do this to yourself? Those questions all assume the same thing, that the eating is a failure, that something broke down and the eating is the evidence. But what if the eating isn't the failure? What if the eating is actually working? That reframe sounds small. It isn't. Because the moment you stop asking, why can't I stop, and start asking, what is this actually doing for me, the entire picture changes. The eating is solving something. It has been solving something for a long time. And the reason it keeps happening isn't weakness. It's that whatever it's solving is still there, still present, still unresolved. And food is still the fastest available answer. That's not a character flaw. That's a nervous system doing exactly what nervous systems do, which is find what works and return to it. The question worth asking is not why you can't stop. The question worth asking is, what did food learn to solve? And to answer that, we need to look at what your nervous system was actually doing all along. Every human nervous system has one primary job: not happiness, not productivity, not self-control, regulation. Bringing the body back to a state it can tolerate when something, stress, loneliness, overwhelm, anger, grief, boredom, that is actually something heavier than boredom, pushes it out of that state. And here is the part that explains everything. At some point, maybe in childhood, maybe later, your nervous system discovered that food works, not metaphorically. Neurologically, eating releases dopamine. It activates the reward circuitry. It creates a brief, reliable, repeatable shift in how the body feels. Research on this is consistent. Food is one of the fastest and most accessible regulation tools the human nervous system has. So your nervous system did what nervous systems are built to do. It learned. It filed food under. This works when things are too much. And every time it worked, even a little, even briefly, that learning got reinforced. This is not a flaw in you. This is how every human being learns anything. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between a useful habit and an unhelpful one. It distinguishes between what works and what doesn't. And food worked. The reason this feels like a flaw is because of what came after. The specific quality of the quiet after the eating. Not peace, exactly, but something more like a drop. And then, often, something else. That something else is what keeps this complicated. And it has a name, too. The thing that comes after the drop, the familiar weight of it. That is shame. And shame is where almost everything about this gets worse. Not because shame is irrational. It makes complete sense given everything you've been told about food and bodies and discipline and what it means to be someone who has control over herself. But here's what the research on shame and behavior actually shows. And this is the part that almost no content in this space says clearly. Shame does not stop the cycle. Shame is part of the cycle. Here is what the loop actually looks like. The eating happens. Shame arrives. Shame says, you have to fix this. Fixing means restriction. Restriction creates deprivation. Deprivation creates pressure. Pressure builds until the nervous system reaches for the fastest regulation tool it knows, which is food. Which brings shame, which says, you have to fix this. You are not stuck in this because you are weak. You are stuck in this because the tools you were given, shame and restriction, happen to be the exact tools that keep the loop running. The pattern makes sense. Not because it's working. It stopped working a long time ago, but because your nervous system is doing exactly what it was taught to do, with exactly the tools it was given. That is a completely different problem than the one you thought you had. Not a character flaw running the show. A learned pattern. And learned patterns, unlike character, can change. If what's landing in this video is opening something, If having a name for the mechanism feels like the beginning of something rather than just information, there's a resource in the description built exactly for this moment. It's called the Emotional Hunger Decoder. It's a short, private tool, audio and PDF, designed to help you identify in real time what the eating urge is actually responding to. Not to stop the urge, to understand it. Because understanding is what actually turns the volume down. Link is in the description whenever you're ready. So what actually interrupts a learned pattern? Not willpower, you already know that. Not wanting it badly enough. You've wanted it badly enough for years. Not knowing that it's emotional eating, because you probably already knew something like that before you clicked on this video. What interrupts a learned pattern is something quieter. And it starts not with doing something different, but with noticing something differently. There is a moment, it might be 2 seconds long, that exists between the pressure and the reach. Most of the time, that moment passes undetected. The nervous system moves fast. It knows this route, but that moment is real. And the one thing that begins to expand it is not resistance. It's curiosity. Not why am I doing this again in the voice of accusation, but what is happening in me right now in the voice of someone who genuinely wants to know. That is a different question. It doesn't stop the eating tonight. It might not stop it for a long time, but it begins to build something that shame has been actively destroying. The ability to be present with your own experience without immediately needing to fix or punish it. And that capacity, small, quiet, built slowly, is what the cycle cannot survive. Not because you white-knuckled your way through it, because you finally understood what it was actually for. Food was the fastest thing that worked. That is not a verdict on who you are. That is a description of what your nervous system learned in the absence of anything else. You were not broken. You were resourceful with what you had. If this opens something you want to go further with, the Emotional Hunger Decoder is in the description. A short, private tool for exactly this. No pressure, no perfect timing. Whenever you're ready. What was the moment, watching this or before, when you first sensed that this might not actually be about the food? What you carried into this video was a question that has been disguised as a verdict for a long time. What is wrong with me? That question assumed the answer was something broken, something missing, something that everyone else has and you somehow don't. What this video offered instead is the actual answer. Your nervous system learned. It learned that food works. It learned that lesson the way all nervous systems learn. Through repetition, through relief, through the simple fact that something needed to go somewhere and food was there. Not because you're broken, because you learned. The shame that came after, the restriction, the starting over, the Monday that was supposed to fix it, none of that was the solution. It was part of the same loop. And understanding that is the first thing that actually has a chance of interrupting it. You don't have to fix anything tonight. That is not what this moment is for. What you carry out of this video is a name, a mechanism, the understanding that what's been happening has a cause that has nothing to do with weakness. That is not a small thing. The pattern makes sense. It has always made sense. You just didn't have the explanation yet. Now you do, one meal at a time, one moment at a time, not one diet at a time.